Shane Walsh. My dad. I love you, Carl.
Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, got a quick story to kick things off for you. When we began Retro Rebound, the vision was simple. Let's create a fun place to celebrate video games old and new. We didn't want to make a hug box, which is why I've been critical of even some of my favorite games from when I was a kid, all the way to new releases. And in order to enjoy something great, you have to know what a bad game is like. We didn't want to create this environment where everything was incredible, no matter how bad it was. And in order to enjoy peak fiction, you have to know what an atrocity is. And today we get into the latest crime against humanity from Gamemill Entertainment, who has published in the last month and a half 3 worst game of the year contenders in Avatar: Quest for Balance, Skull Island: Rise of Kong, and today's video game, The Walking Dead: Destinies. I don't know how this company continues to get away with this without anyone talking about it. I get there are bright spots, and I just waxed poetic on how fantastic I think Nick All-Star Brawl 2 is. I know that the DreamWorks kart racing game is also apparently pretty good, but Gamemill is releasing games that are awful at a staggering clip, and they're for some of the biggest IP. Funny enough, Avatar: Quest for Balance, our review on that game, is one of the most viewed in this channel's history. I don't say it as a flex, but more so to punctuate that I'm happy it is, simply because people need to know how bad this publisher is. In my Skull Island: Rise of Kong review, I didn't point at the developers, I pointed at the publishers, because I could tell it was a game that was clearly in an alpha to pre-alpha state and needed 3-4 more years in the oven to become a complete product. Everything there was purely proof of concept. Afterwards, we learned through various reports that the developer had to make Skull Island: Rise of Kong in a year. So naturally, in the spirit of understanding the consistent bad performances here coming out of Gamemill and how they're grabbing up popular IP, printing out these clear cash grabs, I'm not blaming the developer for this one either. The Walking Dead: Destinies, again, much like Avatar, much like Skull Island, has ideas that can actually be pretty good if they had another 3 to 4 years in the oven. But just like the other 2 games that have released in the last month and a half, The Walking Dead: Destinies also happens to be one of the worst games of the year. And I don't know how they continue to put these stinkers out, especially with prolific IP. Maybe Kong I can understand getting away with. It's maybe not on the level of pop culture awareness as something like Avatar: The Last Airbender or The Walking Dead, AMC's The Walking Dead. I was a huge Walking Dead fan for years. Seasons 1 through 4 are some of my favorite television ever, period, end of story, which I know doesn't have much weight because I don't watch a lot of TV, but I adored it. Got my whole family into it. We used to watch along every single Sunday and then watch Talking Dead. It was a family tradition. All right, then I fell off around season 6, but this game, The Walking Dead: Destinies, is based around seasons 1 through 4, and it takes a really novel approach to the idea. What if you can make different choices as Rick or Shane, and different people compared to the story we know and love from The Walking Dead lived and died? Sounds awesome, right? Well, they didn't have enough time to flesh out these ideas, they didn't have enough time to balance the game, and so unfortunately, while The Walking Dead: Destinies, it has a lot of fantastic ideas, it's awful. And to the developers, don't blame yourself, because I know this story already. I know you had maybe 2 years to make this game. I know you can't put out something quality in today's development environment in that condition. So don't blame yourself, blame the awful publisher in Gamemill. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Rebound. In today's video, we're reviewing The Walking Dead: Destinies. If you're new here and you're into day 1 reviews, nostalgic retrospective content, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. Question I got from some of the audience was, Maddie, The Walking Dead: Destinies looks kind of cool. Are you gonna do a retrospective on all of the Walking Dead games? I fear that we've had a pretty scattered history of Walking Dead games that I'd rather forget than remember. I think of Walking Dead: Survival Instincts, a game based around Daryl, first-person shooting, and was one of the worst games of the year the time it had released. And now here we are again. And I may be just echoing the same things you heard in the Avatar review, so I apologize for my redundancy. Why? Why? What did The Walking Dead do to deserve this? What, did it get insanely popular? Great! You know what that means? We invest in a great video game. Telltale's The Walking Dead is one of the most memorable experiences in gaming I've had, and I know many people can agree that Season 1 is phenomenal. I haven't gone on to things like Michonne and so on and so forth, but The Walking Dead Season 1 from Telltale, was an era, like you just had to be there. But even if you play it to this day, it's still phenomenal. And it's crazy to think that's the best we got, right? Same thing I said with Avatar. The PS2 game in 2006 was just fine. It's crazy to think that in 2023, we got a game far worse in Avatar Quest for Balance. It's crazy to think in 2023, we got arguably the worst Walking Dead game. I want to start off though, at least on a mildly positive note in my critique of this game, in saying that the idea of a ever-changing story is really cool, and I would have loved to see this captured on a bigger budget. So what happens is, as you're going through the iconic beats of The Walking Dead, you're gonna see moments like, for example, Merle and T-Dog facing off, right? And we know what happens. Rick handcuffs Merle to a railing. They leave him out high and dry. You don't see Merle for a long, long while, right? In this game, you can make a choice. You can actually choose to take Merle's side, and then when everyone walks away, Merle handcuffs T-Dog to the railing, and now you lose T-Dog. This is especially cool because T-Dog won't be available in the camp. He won't have any playable moments in the game, which he typically can be playable based on the choices you make. And the same goes for an iconic moment in The Walking Dead. Pardon me on spoilers, but that's the only way you can talk about the best parts of this game. So spoiler in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, you can play as Rick or Shane. Shane can kill Rick instead of vice versa, what happens on Herschel's farm. And that's a really cool component of the game. It's like, this is awesome that you can play the game afterwards. Is what if Shane lived? What would the game be like? And so many choices otherwise when you get to the prison and so on. So just ways things can play out. That's the heartbeat of this game. It is a wonderful concept, and that's why out of everything we've reviewed from Gamemill in the last month and a half, this one stings the most, because you can see that they had something here, and if they just gave it the time and respect it deserved, they may have nailed it. That's not to say I have a lot of positive things to say about the gameplay experience, the visuals, and so on and so forth, but I do really like the concept of Walking Dead Destinies. I also like its initial visual presentation. When you wake up in the hospital, the film grain, the lighting, it's clearly extremely low budget, but if this is what we were gonna get, your beautiful corner, if you will, in game development, then I would have been okay with this. Is it perfect? No. Is it screaming big budget? No, but that's okay. It's the moment you're in the hospital and part of your stealth activates as you're walking into a cloud of smoke, and that's how you can hide from zombies. It's there and then I went, oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, now I see what the problem is here. This isn't gonna be good, is it? And it's not. I struggle to find a place to start with this. I think I want to get into the gameplay, because that is what just brings this experience from, okay, this could be a real bad guilty pleasure for you, to this is unplayable. So as you're running around, you're going to have melee weapons you can use. You have a weak attack and a strong attack. And you'll notice as you swing on the bottom left, there's your health bar, and then there is a stamina bar. As you swing away on enemies, it typically takes about 3 hits to take them out. Or you could hit them once and then immediately execute them with the square button. So why is this already problematic? It's a simple system, rinse and repeat. As you kill enemies, you build adrenaline. You can use your adrenaline to one-hit an enemy. Again, Maddie, what's the problem here? It's the way stamina is balanced and the amount of enemies that come your way. So the stamina balance problem stems from the fact that, let's say I swing at an enemy constantly and choose not to execute. There's no trade-off or risk reward for spending stamina in an intelligent way. If you hit someone twice to open them up to press square to execute them, that immediately depletes all of your stamina. Until it recharges, you can no longer swing on enemies. So there's no choice there in, well, why don't I swing 3 times? Well, 3 swings will take you all of your stamina. So the combat is flat. There's no tactical decision making here. You're expending your stamina for every zombie you kill. So killing zombies, as you'll see in some of the gameplay, is just me running loops. Kill one, wait for my stamina recharge, run in, kill one, wait for my stamina recharge, and so on and so on. It just goes on and on and on in that loop, and it's immediately mind-numbing. It gets worse when you factor in how many enemies they throw your way. There are moments in the game I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, there's no way you actually thought this was a good idea. What they're trying to do is capture the pressure and intensity of the Horde in The Walking Dead, right? In The Walking Dead, at least in the early seasons before it became a show about human versus human, I think the thing that they did best was the zombies felt like a true threat. I know many people are fatigued on zombie stories, but that was actually my favorite part of the early episodes of The Walking Dead, was that anyone could get bit at any time. That sense of no place is safe is fantastic. And to me, the moment they made that less of the focus of the story, more about, well, humans are really the worst enemies out there, they're worse than the walkers, is where it started to lose me completely. Even if some of the storytelling did improve, I can understand that. I love the risk and the threat of the zombie. So I get why they're sending hordes your way in the gameplay. Here's the problem though, is that there are so many that you don't have the tools and you're not equipped and don't have the mechanics, anything to get through them. So they'll put a whole wall of zombies in front of a car that you need to get to in order to complete your objective, and you have to get mauled to get there, and you'll probably die. And that's hilarious. I'm like, how is this not balanced, man? I know the answer to it. You didn't have time to balance it. And it's frustrating because I'm sitting there knowing the reason all of this is happening. There's a mission I was playing as Maggie where it was just endless zombies right away. They give you a stealth segment and you have to crawl around. The stealth in this game is awful. You have to crawl around. And as I'm taking out zombies, there are more spawning in vehicles and they're crawling out of those. They're spawning in dead air and coming at me. It's just overwhelming because the game's combat systems don't support that and the stealth is awful. So what you'll do in stealth is you'll either hide in that random smoke cloud I talked about earlier or tuck away behind vehicles. The level design is extremely linear. I will say I like how they decorated some of the exterior environments, especially when you're wandering around Atlanta. I love how they kind of captured it, right? Like the way all these buses and cars are scattered and catawampus, and the way that they're weathered down. There's a sense of abandonment here. Like they captured things, if you would, artistically really well. They just didn't have time to shine things up, and that's what makes it sting all the more so. So yeah, you're gonna get swarmed by enemies constantly. You're not gonna have the tools to take them on. The combat immediately gets redundant. There's also third-person shooting. There was one point I was in a camp and I was playing as Rick, and yeah, the camera got spun around, so Rick was facing me and I was shooting over the shoulder and popping zombies in the head. I was like, yo, this is so bad. It's actually unreal. We deserve so much better as either, in my case, I guess an ex-Walking Dead fan since I don't watch it anymore, or true Walking Dead fans. We deserve so much better here than the lack of budget that got packed into this thing here. Now, what's interesting is since everyone's playable, what I like about that is everyone gets a little bit of a skill tree. Everyone's good with a particular item. Like Rick is great with a baseball bat. Shane is great with a fire axe. Maggie is, I think, good with a crowbar or a machete. And they also have Shane, who's good with a shotgun, while Rick is naturally great with his revolver. There are little things there to the gameplay style that flavor it up, and it's definitely an easy trophy game. I played for an hour and a half in one stretch during this review, and I got 30% trophies. I haven't looked at the platinum because I know what they're doing now. They're trying to get sales through easy trophy guides. I know how this works because I used to be a die-hard trophy hunter, and there were so many games out there that tried to farm your money by making crappy games that were alluring enough by IP, but also had a really easy platinum. Because I know this, I've collected a bunch of them. Don't fall for it. It seems like an easy plat just from how many trophies are popping, but do not fall for it. When you're playing the game, as you go from mission to mission, it goes across 5 acts, 25 episodes, if you will, and you'll have these moments where you're in an HQ. And these are familiar hubs that you've seen from Herschel's farm to where everyone's parked on a highway, where Lori and Rick and everyone first reunite in the early parts of the show. So you'll see these familiar hubs, and you can walk up and talk to a couple of NPCs. It's just as simple as hearing like a one-liner from them. Sometimes you'll be able to solve disputes between characters in the camp. This again seems like a really cool idea feeding into the whole Destinies thing, but you just get a ton of skill points out of it. There's no real rhyme or reason to why you'd pick one side over the other. You just kind of make choices, and that's really it. The voice acting is, you know, I can't blame them entirely because there are moments it's really not that awful in my opinion. I don't even think the direction of the voice work is that bad. I just feel like, you know, it's really hard to replicate that iconic cast. I think of Marvel's Avengers, right? I think of how everyone was presented around the time where, you know, the Marvel Endgame buildup was happening. And you look at Iron Man in Marvel's Avengers versus, you know, what you'd of course get in the MCU, and it was night and day. And so kind of same thing here where, you know, you're not going to get that really accurate performance, but that was the least of my problems, honestly. Now, as you're wandering around these camps, you're going to be able to do expeditions. So as you're wandering through these levels, you'll get updates on the walkie-talkie of like Merle saying like, hey, I'm out here at a grocery store. You want me to pick something up effectively, or should I take these enemies out? And you'll make a call on the fly, and they'll let you know if it was a success or a failure. So kind of like Assassin's Creed in a weird way, where the expeditions are happening while you're exploring the world. It's just that these levels are really linear. You double back through some levels a bunch of times. Like there's one point where you'll have Rick run through the city and get to the tank. By the way, the tank covered in zombies. I don't know how I managed to make it to that tank on the first try, but I got really lucky. And then Glenn runs through the same exact level, except with more zombies this time. It's really, really weird. It's clearly padded out again, where you feel how rigid and tight the budget is, and they had to make something out of it, so they made a whole level out of replaying a level. In Redfall fashion, the cutscenes are slideshows for the most part, again, indicating the lack of budget here, because there are times where the characters are moving and talking, lightly animated. It's not Skull Island Rise of Kong level bad, but it's pretty bad, and when there isn't that full-on cutscene, it's just really awkward slideshows, and it brings me straight back to Redfall. I don't know what's going on this year. I know we've talked a lot about how this is a historically great year for games. I think if you've been like me reviewing the good and the bad, I find this to be almost a median year. Like there is, for every single, like my favorite game of the year is Lies of P, you get a Walking Dead Destinies. It feels like I can't just enjoy continuous W's. Like I need to take an L every now and then this year. And maybe that's the balance and the force, if you will. Last thing I'll say is the music. They reuse the main theme, right? The great theme from The Walking Dead. They use that constantly in this game, to the point where just, if you're a Walking Dead fan, don't play this, because look, not only should you not support this, but it's gonna make you hate that theme, and we don't want that, because they reuse it for everything. They reuse it for combat, big story moments. It's just constant. Just stay away from it, please. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I gotta say here. So those are my thoughts on The Walking Dead Destinies. Yeah, I'm very upset about it. So with that, take great care of yourselves, and I will catch you in the next, a much more positive Retro Rebound. Peace out.